Jeff's Genealogy, Part 2.
Furthering my research into Jeff's genealogy, I found some interesting information about Jeff's spiritual heritage.
I've known Aurora for 8 years, but she's still running background checks on me.
We know that after much seeking, Mary, in her own words, found her spiritual home in Quakerism.
Jason, on the other hand, still claimed to be an atheist secular humanist at the end of his life, in spite of being married to 2 women with strong spiritual lives. Undoubtedly, his atheism was partly due to his parental roots, where his mother, among others, said that no true God would have crippled her son.
In researching Jeff's family history, however, I found 2 strains, Puritanism and Quakerism. Both Jason and Mary had ancestors who were Puritans.
Jason's mother's lineage goes back to Richard Warren, Elizabeth Walker, and Mary Jane Folk, all Mayflower passengers in 1620.
In Mary's lineage, Mary's grandmother, Mamie Pippin Sadler's great-grandmother's great-grandmother was Margaret Brassier Jordan. She was the daughter of French Huguenot Robert Brassier, a Calvinist. But in 1658, at the age of 16, after hearing Quaker missionaries, Margaret converted to Quakerism. According to Hinshaw's Encyclopedia of Quaker Genealogy, she was one of the first American converts to Quakerism. Margaret and her husband, Thomas Jordan, and many other members of her family suffered persecution on account of their faith.
So both Jason and Mary had Puritan ancestors. Mary's ancestor, Margaret Jordan, however, converted from Calvinism to Quakerism, so there is both Puritan and Quaker roots in my ancestry.
Both Quaker and Puritan sects were extremists in their day, fighting government and church oppression. The Quakers were left-wing, believing that the light of God lives within everyone. Quakers become leaders in the fight for civil rights. They were early anti-slavery abolitionists and got along with the indigenous tribes in their areas.
Quakers were early proponents of women's rights, allowing women to become preachers and leaders in their fellowship. In Choctaw, where Margaret's family lived, free slaves were allowed to own land.
In fact, Margaret's descendants, including Benjamin Jordan, were slavery abolitionists. Benjamin Jordan freed all his slaves and allowed freed slaves to live on his property. And according to oral history, a group of freed slaves used their savings from oystering in the area to purchase a plot of land in Nansemond County.
This eventually became known as the town of Hobson.
Puritans, on the other hand, were the right-wing reformers, heavily sin-focused, and they favored a doctrine of predetermination. This doctrine states that those who go to heaven are predetermined before birth, and those who are predetermined to go to heaven must live in a constant faith in Father, Son, and Holy Ghost.
Though these 2 sects colonized America at roughly the same time, they did not get along. And in some cases, the Quakers were tortured and persecuted by the Puritans and even hanged for their beliefs.
Another puritanical strain were the French Huguenots, who colonized Virginia and North Carolina. Mary has ancestors who were French Huguenots and were heavily persecuted in France by the Catholic Church, so they came to America to practice their religion freely.
It is interesting that Margaret Jordan, with her French Huguenot roots, experienced a religious conversion to Quakerism at the age of 16. This was after hearing Quaker missionaries Josiah Cole and Thomas Thurston. In Margaret Jordan's obituary, published in 1708, it was written that Margaret remained a lifelong Quaker and suffered for the, quote, exercise of her conscience in the worship of God, unquote.
And these divisions in American politics and family life exist in America to this day.